This is Charlie Rose.
Born Sean Carter, Jay-Z is one of the most successful entertainers around. His albums have sold 50 million copies worldwide. Each of his 11 records have reached the top of the U.S. charts, giving him more #1 albums than anyone but the Beatles. He has won 10 Grammy Awards, 10 MTV Video Awards, 9 BET Hip Hop Awards, and 3 American Music Awards.
Last scene out of state where I drop my slang. I'm deep in the South, kicking up top game. Save the narrative, you saving it for marriage. Let's keep it real, man, you saving it for carriage. Carolina blue kicks, hottest on the block. Used to Willie bicycle since I was 6. Big pimpin', we spin, then cheese. Check 'em out now. Big pimpin' on BLAD. Can I get a what? Do these chickens from all of my thugs who don't love dough? They get no dough. Us the end, cause I touched a friend. She gave me one more chance and I touched her again. I seen the tears that she busted in. I said, Mommy, there's a draft. Shut the door, please. Come on in. You know it's hell when I come through. The life and times of Sean Carter, Volume 2. Well, my glove compartment is locked, so it's the trunk in the back. And I know my rights, so you gon' need a warrant for that. Thanks for letting me bloom, for your wisdom, for your womb, for the roof over my head, for my shoes, for my bed.
Jay-Z has leveraged his success in the studio into a business empire. From 2005 to 2007, he was president of Def Jam Records, a job that has been called the Hip-Hop Oval Office. He is currently president and CEO of Roc Nation, but his ascent to stardom originated in humble and troubled beginnings. His life started in Brooklyn's Marcy Projects, where poverty and crack cocaine consumed the neighborhood youth. His father left home when he was 11, which left his mother Gloria to raise 4 children alone. During his teen years, hanging out on the street, his hunger for music often took a back seat to selling crack. Today, Jay-Z credits rap music with saving his life. In his new book, Decoded, he writes about how hip-hop took him off the streets and provided an outlet for his ambition and his anger. I spoke with Jay-Z last month at the Brooklyn Museum for a live audience. The interview took place just a few miles from the Bedford-Stuyvesant neighborhood where he was born and raised. We had done an interview several years ago in which he talked about himself, but this was a moment in which, after the publication of this book, he was coming to the Brooklyn Museum, this giant and historic building that houses art in its grandeur, a place that seems far different from his life and his music. But it is a place that welcomed this hometown hero that night. And as we walk through this building, you got a sense of who he is. Here is part of our conversation. I have in my hand Jay-Z Decoded. Decoded because it's about decoding rap, and it's about decoding what else?
The central theme is about decoding these rap lyrics, but in order to really decode them, I had to tell the story of the generation and everybody that grew up around that time. I had to tell that story. So it's based on the lyrics, but it's a lot more. It's a very difficult book to explain in that way. But it's really the story of a generation of people who grew up through an era that was very difficult.
You started a book before, and then you pulled back on it because you thought it was too personal. Why did you decide now's the time for me to write a book?
That book was basically, it was more personal. It was a little too personal.
Now, what does that mean?
Well, it was very difficult to read myself. I'm usually a private person. But this one had a bigger purpose because, you know, while I was decoding these lyrics, it explained rap as poetry. It told the story of a generation. It was much more than just a book about me. You know, it captured a time period. You know, all these things happening. I thought it was more important to have that book than the Black Book. That was the name of it.
In a way, rap gave a generation a means of expressing themselves.
Yeah, and a voice for all the people who didn't have a voice, you know, and put things into context. If you hear a song, you might have to bleep this out. You hear a song like The Police by NWA, until you see the Rodney King beat, and you don't really understand the context in which they're saying it, and you think it's just NWA. You think it's some, you know, with attitude, just really being provocative. But once we saw, you know, we saw that. We was like, wait, maybe this is really happening. Maybe this happens daily, you know, and it was the thing that was happening. So for us, it gave a voice to a generation of people who didn't have a voice, who were ignored, who didn't get the best schooling, who didn't get the best roads, who politicians never paid attention to. You know, now they can hear themselves, and hear, you know, we heard ourselves, and I'm not removed from that, hear ourselves on the radio and hear our story, you know, through these songs.
You wouldn't be sitting in that chair if you hadn't loved to rhyme and been good at it, and also had been lucky, because so many people that you knew in your generation didn't make it to 41.
Absolutely. Yeah, it took a bit of all that. It took a bit of a blessing from God to have a talent, you know, and I had a talent. My first album didn't come out till I was 26, so for so long I ignored that talent. It took a bit of luck because, you know, the people that I was with daily was a personal friend of mine, you know, went to jail for 12 years, and me and him would be together every single day. So I know that same fate was awaiting me. I mean, we would have got picked up at the same time had I not been away or been in London somewhere pursuing music. I would have been in jail for 12 years.
You had some near misses.
Yeah.
Being shot at.
Yeah, plenty.
Yeah. Your mother, there was music in your house.
My mom is here today.
There was music in your house when you were growing up in the projects.
Plenty of music, yes.
I mean, that was what was the thing that you could hold on to.
Yeah, I didn't know that I would apply it in such a way. I was just really, you know, being entertained. You know, we played music in the house and clean up the house, and, you know, house smelled like pine saw. Y'all know that, right? You know, and the windows open, drapes blowing, music playing. Often I was just enjoying the sounds. Prince, Michael Jackson, Temptations, Stevie Wonder. I think my mom may have had the first rap record ever. It was like a King James III.
King James III.
Yeah, yeah.
Your dad left home when you were 11. What impact did that have?
Well, you know, for anyone who's been through that, you know, as a kid, as a child, you look at your father, you know, that's your hero, like a superhero. He's larger than life. He's actually really larger than life figure. And, you know, that whole thing, you know, my dad could beat your dad thing is just a smaller example of how, you know, you feel as a kid. So to have that removed, I don't know what's worse, not meeting your dad ever or having your dad there and then not being there. You know, that sense of loss and abandonment, you know, that affected who I was as a person for years, and, well, even today.
But he left you his record collection when he left.
He didn't leave it to me, no. There was never that conversation. I think it went like, get out and leave the records. I can't say for sure, I wasn't there. My mom is tough, man. She's tough.
When you first heard rap, how old were you?
It was I had to be around 9. I started when I was 9, because I started the next day after I heard.
You came home and started
writing
down.
Writing all kind of, whatever, anything that I could think of.
Started rhyming at that time.
Yeah.
And you kept that notebook for a long time.
Yeah, for a while, and then I got, you know, as we moved around, you know, I got lost somewhere. But you know, I used to write, you know, like obsessively. You know, I used to write for hours upon hours and hours. I would just write into this notebook, sideways, crooked, on top, over there. You know, it was just a mess of words. And as I start getting further and further away from that notebook, as I start moving around in the street a bit, I was further removed away from that notebook. So I started these thoughts. I wrote so obsessively that these thoughts would come to me. You know, I would be in the streets and people would be talking to me. I'd just be like... So I would go into the bodega and I would, you know, buy a quarter water or something, anything, and scribbled on a notebook, put it in my pocket until I got back to the notebook and transferred it. But as I got further and further away from that notebook, I had to store it in my mind. So I started memorizing 4 or 5, songs at a time, So it just became normal to.
When were you introduced to, as a hustle, crack cocaine?
I don't know what age, but pretty early on.
But it became a business.
Yeah.
You never used it?
No. Crack cocaine, no. Come on, man. That's hardcore, man.
I know.
A little weed.
Yeah.
Ballantine Ale. Guinness Stout.
But how did you get in the business?
Well, it's fairly easy. And growing up during that time, we have to put the time, we have to remember the time we're talking about. We're talking about Reaganomics. We're talking about when crack cocaine was everywhere. It just engulfed everywhere. You smelt it in the hallways. You saw the little empty vials, on the curb floating by in the water. It was just everywhere. So it wasn't difficult. It was one conversation. It was my friend who was my age who introduced me to someone else, and who was maybe 2 years older than us, and we had a conversation, and it was almost like a job interview.
Yeah, tell me about that.
And he was like, you gotta be serious about this. You can't, be playing about this. This is like serious. You gotta not get high on your own supply. And you got to be a man. But, some of the things really stuck. I'm being funny, but some of the things like integrity, and I'm not promoting that anyone sell crack cocaine, but the integrity and, these are the things that today, to day, some of those things I survive on, my instincts. I didn't go to Wharton or Princeton or Harvard or anything like that to know business the way I believe I know it. It's just more so my instinct, things that I feel. And, these are the things that I learned because you survive on your instincts. Instincts in the street mean life or death. You have to know how to assess a situation. You have to read it. You have to know trends. Those trends is, a bunch of guys with trench coats coming around the corner. Yeah? So, I learned a couple things during these experiences as well. But it wasn't, to answer your question, it was a chance meeting. It wasn't difficult at all. It was everywhere.
This is the 80s, and there's a parallel life you're leading, though. I mean, you're writing rhyme, you're writing rap, and you're hustling at the same time. How did you go back and forth?
I would go away for 8 months, a year or so, and then I would come back. How it started was I was messing with a guy named Jazz, and, we went to London, and, he was the first one that made me see that, wow, you could get a record deal from this. This is just not rapping on the corner in the neighborhood. So I would do something like that for 2 months, and then I would be gone for a year. Then there was another guy from Brooklyn as well, Clark Kent. We started doing demos, and I would come back and maybe rhyme at a party, and then I would go again for another year and a half. So I was like hustling. I started from Trenton, then I went to Maryland, then I went to Virginia. I was going further south and further away from, that dream. And as, I was being more successful, rap at that time wasn't in the place that it is now as far as artists becoming businessmen or getting paid. Well, what happened most times is we would pull up in Mercedes and Lexuses and all these big cars, and then these rappers would pull up in like a turtle top, and there'd be 12 of them in there, and they would.
So you were looking at the Mercedes and the turtle top and saying,
it was like a step backwards.
I think I'll hustle a little bit more.
Yeah, it prolonged it for a long time.
Yeah.
Because it was like, these guys. It was sad in a way. These guys are working so hard, and they're missing their families, and they're away from their families, and they're working hard, and they're performing on stage, and at the end of the day, some other person is getting rich from off of their talent. So we didn't really look at rap as an escape until like the mid-'90s when people started really making money. Russell Simmons, then the Master P's, then Puff, and all of them came, and then it was something serious around that time.
But you understood also that crack cocaine was doing terrible things to the neighborhood.
Later on. at the time when you're doing it, you don't even think of the repercussions. It's almost a survival thing, you know. And after a while, after the survival thing, it becomes an adrenaline thing. You start being addicted to the rush and the feel and the excitement of pulling up in, you know, nice cars, et cetera, et cetera. You don't think about the damage that's being done. I mean, you're immature, you're young, so you don't think about that until later on, till you know, become aware of who you are and the effects of what you're doing is having on the community. We was laughing at people who were, you know, right now, today it's sad. You know, as a kid, it was funny, if I'm being completely honest.
I mean, you did this between the ages of 13 and 22.
Yeah.
I mean, at no time did
a
you
little
understand.
longer, though.
Sorry?
A little longer.
Longer?
Yeah.
26?
My first album came out when I was 26. So
No, I know, but so until 26?
basically until I closed that door.
Yeah. You didn't say goodbye to hustling until you had an album. This was Reasonable Doubt?
What happened was I said, I'm going to give this thing a real hard and difficult look. I'm going to give it, because that's what I was doing for so long was I was still holding on to this tree. I was still afraid to let go because I was pretty successful at doing what I was doing. And I would not let go what I was doing, so I couldn't move forward. I couldn't swing forward because I was caught in this life. I knew I was going back to the street. I just knew it in my heart. I was like, I'm gonna give it, because I wanted to do it. I had passion for it, and, you know, and I said, you know, I just let the other thing go.
Why were you good at the hustle?
I don't know, a gifted mind or something. I don't know. Yeah, I have no idea. A lot had to do with, you know, who you are as a person. You know, a person of respect and integrity. You know, that has a lot to do with it.
Did you have more confidence in your ability at the hustle than you did at hip hop?
At the time, yeah, that wasn't even close.
Wasn't even close.
Yeah, I was thinking that rap wasn't going to work out, and I was going back. So that was almost like, to me, it was a safety net. That's very difficult to call dealing drugs a safety net where you possibly going to, you know, 9 times out of 10 you're going to jail or getting killed, and that was my safety net.
Well, I mean, you were shot at, and it was very close. I mean, the times that I have read about here when you were shot at, it could have been all over.
Could have been over a lot of times.
A lot of times.
Yeah.
So you think you were lucky?
Yeah, definitely.
Just lucky.
Yeah. You know, and this goes with believing in certain things and believing in the universe and believing in the just universe that, you know, my heart, you know, I didn't have any malcontent in my heart for anyone. So I think, you know, and when I became aware of, you know, the damage I was doing, you know, I tried to move away from what I was doing. So
you mean the damage that crack cocaine was doing to people?
Yeah. So I think in some sort of way, you know, it had some sort of good karma, and even in, that's why human beings are so complex. You know, everything is not black and white. You can't say that guy's a drug dealer, he's a bad guy, or that guy's a lawyer, he's good, you know, or that guy's a preacher and he's great, because we all seen the complexity of human beings. We've seen preachers do wrong. We've seen drug dealers do good. We've seen all kind of different things.
Tell me about writing 99. What's the story behind that lyric?
It started out as pretty much a joke, but then I used real stories and things that happened to me in my life to further, you know, twist the joke. So the second verse of 99 Problem is really complex on many different levels. It deals with right and wrong. It deals with gray. It deals with racial tension. It deals with all sorts of things. So it's these guys who take off on a venture in a Maxima, and they're going down the... Okay? They're going down the highway, and they're doing wrong things. They have drugs in the car. And they're riding down the New Jersey Turnpike, which was a super route back then, a major route. And that during that time, there was this whole thing of how, because of all the stuff that was going on Turnpike, police were racially profiling everyone. So the whole thing, Driving While Black, was created during that time. So your state trooper sees a car full of black guys, no reason he pulls them over. That's where the driving 55 and the 54